What is up, YouTube? So I'm back with another reaction video. I'm sure most of you have heard at least somewhat about the Diddy situation and his recent arrest. And for those of you who don't know, 3, 4, maybe slightly more months ago, a bunch of lawsuits dropped on Diddy, a bunch of evidence. He got raided by the feds. He had that crazy video drop of him and Cassie where he was like chasing her through the hotel, beating the crap out of her. Yeah, so we got a video here from Law and Crime. Shout out to them. You should sub over there. They got a great network if you're into crime or law or any of that stuff at all. It's exactly where you want to be. So we got 13 disturbing details in the P. Diddy indictment revealed after rapper's arrest. So P. Diddy has been arrested. He is not being given bail as far as things can say. The judge is saying that he will stay locked up until trial. And the charges he's facing are charges that at his age, he could get 25, 30 years. He could spend, realistically, a good part or the rest of his life in jail if things don't go well for him. So what I'm going to say is I don't know what he's guilty of, but there's a lot of stuff that seems like he's guilty. So I just hope everybody in the case gets their justice, and whatever he deserves, I hope that that's what he gets. Let's get into this video right here.
A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City. Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York.
Bro, the irony of that is crazy. A year ago, first of all, I think I got that a long time ago, but a year ago, you get a key to the city. And like a year later, federal indictment, sex trafficking. That's crazy. So ironic.
New York.
One of the most famous
and that prosecutor is ready to fry him. That don't look like a joke prosecutor. That look like a no-joke prosecutor.
In the hip-hop world is now facing 3 charges in federal court. Many people have come forward in recent months to accuse Sean Diddy Combs of abuse, sex trafficking, drug possession, and more, but now the federal government is getting involved and promising to bring down the rap mogul's alleged criminal empire. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
This office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be.
As they should.
No one should doubt our commitment on that.
Talk about a day in the legal...
I'm going to just say with the Diddy thing, dang, I almost feel like the Diddy thing, he not the top person. He like the bottom of the top piece. He had like the people on top, and he's like the bottom of them, so they're using him as a scapegoat. Could be wrong, but it's kind of what I think. This might be a little similar to the Epstein thing with him taking videos and, you know, maybe trying to extort people with him. I don't know. Just looks like it.
Crime world. And today, it all centers around Sean Diddy Combs. And all of these details and filings in his new criminal case, and we're going to break it down for you right now, give you everything you need to know. So, the Southern District of New York is promising justice for multiple victims who say that rapper...
Damn. Okay, I just want to point this out. This makes me feel bad. He got a diamond in the same tooth I got a diamond in. Right? Well, I got 2, actually. But I just thought that was funny.
Producer, businessman Combs used his power, influence, and wealth to intimidate them into doing his bidding, whether that was obtaining drugs or performing sexually or cleaning up after apparent sex acts. Now, we've of course been reporting on Combs for months here on Sidebar. In November of last year, Cassandra Ventura, Cassie Combs' ex, filed a huge lawsuit against him, claiming that he abused her physically, sexually, emotionally for years before she was finally able to get away.
I don't think that that's just a claim. I'm just going to say it. I don't think that that's a claim. I think with the video that that's a fact, that he did stuff like that.
Now, Combs denied everything she had to say in her filing. He settled the lawsuit with her just 1 day after it was filed, but we know that set off a chain reaction. Multiple other lawsuits against him and even against his son were filed alleging sexual abuse.
Dang, he had a lawsuit? I didn't know the lawsuit was against his son, too. But you drag your kids into this?
Sex trafficking, illegal narcotics possession, violence. Then, in March of this year, Homeland Security agents, they show up at Combs' homes in both Miami and Los Angeles, search warrants in hand. They raided both locations, seemingly collecting a huge amount of evidence, which we will get through in a moment. And we learned at the time that this was connected to a sex trafficking investigation out of the Southern District of New York, but we didn't know all the exact details. Well, you fast forward to this week, and Combs was officially arrested Monday night at the Park Hyatt Hotel in New York out in Manhattan. According to his defense team, he had been booked there since September 5th, that was nearly 2 weeks ago, and he was in town in anticipation of the charges being filed, which is important because now that Combs has been arrested and charged, he says this is an example to show he's not a flight risk. He's been...
That's exactly why he did that. First off, you want to get bail, you need a residence or somewhere to be in the jurisdiction that you're arrested in. They're not going to let you go and stay in Florida if your thing's federal court in New York. It's not going to happen. And on top of that, he goes, yeah, I'm not a flight risk. Bro, when you have this much money, you're a flight risk, right? Like, you could say, I'm a flight risk. You can say it about anybody. But when you're that rich, bro, you are literally like the definition of a flight risk. You can charter a jet. You can pay off all kinds of people. You can go any country that doesn't have an extradition treaty and live there and you're good. Like, you're a flight risk, my dog. 100%.
Cooperative. However, when U.S. Attorney Damian Williams, again from the Southern District of New York, held a press conference and was asked about Combs' cooperation in this case, he seemed skeptical.
Let me just say this. I think that generally with increasing frequency, the word cooperative or cooperating has taken on tremendous elasticity, and it no longer really bears any relation to what the word means when we use it in a very specific context. So responding to lawful process and the like does not qualify as cooperation when we use that term here.
By the way, as we sort through all these legal filings around Sean Combs, and there's a lot to get into, can I just take a quick second to tell you guys about something positive? Yeah, something that I think you're actually going to really love. Would you want cash back when you buy straight into your bank account? Just on convenience stores. Questions about future earn or scan the gallon on your first tank of gas.
Guys, scan that QR code. You might get something. There's the ad.
Check it out. Now, there are still questions about future filings, possible charges against co-conspiracy to this major indictment against Sean Combs. So, prosecutors filed documents in federal court that lay out the accusations against Combs and his associates. Although, to be clear, Combs is the only one named in this filing for now. He faces 3 charges: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Now, during a hearing on Tuesday, Combs entered a not guilty plea to every charge. And if he is convicted of all charges, Combs faces a minimum of 15 years in prison with the possibility that the 54-year-old could spend the rest of his life behind bars. That's what we're talking about here. So we're going to break down each of these counts for you, as well as more on why Combs says he should be allowed out on bail while he waits trial. And let's start with the indictment. It's 14 pages, jam-packed with information. I want to hit the highlights. So first, right out of the gate, the government lays out some pretty damning accusations. Quote, for decades, Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, a.k.a. P. Diddy, Diddy, a.k.a. P. D, Love, they, throughout the course of this indictment, refer to him by his many monikers, the defendant abused...
Bro, they just need to pick one name and go with that. Like, you don't need to use 10 names. Who calls him PD? Well, unless it's a PD file, you know, PDF file. It could be one. It could be that. That could.
Threatened and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on the employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice.
Oh, that's crazy. Forced labor and the arson. That's when he blew up somebody's car, allegedly, right? That's what I think that's from.
Which brings me now to count 1, racketeering conspiracy. So the main idea here is that there is a criminal agreement, an agreement to engage in racketeering. And racketeering is when there is a criminal enterprise, it's like organized crime, a grouping of people who break the law. They commit crimes. Now, it doesn't need to be Sean Combs Breaks the Law LLC. You don't need an official company. Just an organized group of people, organized crime.
Kind of was that.
And a criminal enterprise is supposed to have a common goal. So whether it was to benefit financially, whether it was to satisfy Sean Combs' sexual desires, whether it was to protect him, there has to be a common goal in mind. We saw this, we're seeing this actually, I should say, in the Young Thug trial out of Georgia. Big thing for the prosecution is they have listed a number of different crimes. They're trying to say this wasn't done in an individual capacity, but it was done to further that gang. Similar idea here. Okay. Now also, as you're going to see here,
For Young Thug.
in a racketeering case, there are numerous predicate crimes. These are underlying crimes that Combs is not specifically charged with, like arson or kidnapping or forced labor, but they are crimes under the umbrella of the larger criminal enterprise. By the way, I should tell you, the racketeering allegations that we see in this indictment are very consistent with the allegations put forward by Rodney Little Rod Jones, Combs' former producer.
Bro, that's true. Yo, back when he dropped his lawsuit, a lot of people were like, yo, the things you're saying are crazy. It's too much. You ain't do all that. It's starting to look like Diddy did it. Diddy did exactly what Rod Jones is saying, bro. Dang.
Who was one of the people that filed a sexual assault lawsuit against him and said there were violations of racketeering law. In fact, although no one is specifically named in this indictment, you can kind of see who those alleged victims of Combs are, their allegations, that they were the basis for the charges here, especially Cassandra Ventura. Because we all know that when that video back in 2016 was released by CNN a few months ago of Sean.
That's something that's like needs to be said, right? Like civil cases, even though they're their own thing, if someone hasn't been charged with something and you start dropping civil cases, and a lot of civil cases especially, and those start getting a lot of publicity, there is a very, very good chance that that person is going to get charged just because of the pressure that's put on and possible new details that are emerging and things like that, right? Puts a lot of pressure on the government and the powers that be to go and do something. So it makes a lot of sense.
Sean Combs purportedly beating Cassandra Ventura in a hotel elevator bank that was publicized for the whole world to see, and he apologized for on Instagram. That is mentioned specifically in this indictment. Now, reading from the indictment, it says, quote, "The defendant and others known and unknown participated in unlawful and other activities related to the conduct of the Combs Enterprises affairs. These individuals included certain Combs business employees, such as members of Combs security staff, household staff, personal..."
Bro, imagine you're a security guard and you get sent to Diddy, bro. Like, you get, like, I mean, listen, is are probably people you've known and brought in for a while, but imagine you're, like, you work at a big security company, you're, like, the new guy, and you end up at a Diddy party, dude. Like, what do you even do? I mean, leave and not come back is probably but I don't know. That's just crazy, bro. Imagine being a security guard for all that. I know you're getting well paid, but damn, bro.
Assistants and high-ranking supervisors, as well as other close associates of Combs. Now, one of the most startling examples of Combs' alleged control over those around him came from the description of apparent sex parties called freak-offs. This is something that Ventura and others alleged in their lawsuits. What are they? Well, the indictment says Combs and other members and associates of the Combs enterprise wielded the power and prestige of Combs' role at the Combs business to intimidate, threaten, and lure female victims into Combs' orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Combs then used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sex acts with male commercial sex workers that Combs referred to as, among other things, freak-offs. Freak-offs were...
Bro, so why is it always the rich dudes who get almost any girl they want this happening to? Like, bro, you're getting girls to do stuff they don't want to do with male sex workers. Why not just hire female sex workers at that point, bro? You could be paying, there are people who you could pay to do all of this. And they'd be happy. Why do you need to go get people that don't want to do it? Is that what, that's what gets you? That's messed up.
Elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, I'm not going to say the next part, basically pleasured himself during and often electronically recorded. In arranging these freak-offs, Combs, with the assistance of members and associates of the Combs enterprise, transported and caused to be transported commercial sex workers across state lines and internationally. Freak-offs occurred regularly, sometimes lasted multiple days, and often involved multiple commercial sex workers. So this is also kind of a flavor of the sex trafficking charge, which we'll get to a little bit later. During freak-offs, Combs distributed a variety of controlled substances to victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant. Sometimes, unbeknownst to the victims, Combs kept videos he filmed of victims engaging in sex acts with commercial sex workers. After freak-offs, Combs and the victims...
You're that messed up in the head that you need to keep the videos and that's what gets you busted? That's what gives them the undeniable proof. Your ass keeps the videos? Like, come on.
Typically received IV fluids to recover from the physical exertion and drug use. The indictment then provides more details about what Combs expected his employees to do before, during, and after these sessions.
Now, Combs did not do this all on his own. As I mentioned, Combs has been charged with RICO conspiracy. He used his business and employees of that business and other close associates to get his way. Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff. The indictment alleges that those individuals facilitated the freak-offs. They booked the hotel rooms and stocked them with the supplies, including drugs, baby oil, personal lubricant, extra linens, and lighting.
Bro, and he got caught with 1,000 bottles of baby oil. First of all, that means you buy them by the pallet. That's like a lifetime of baby oil and then a few more lifetimes for most people. And bro, when all this stuff came out like a while back, you weren't like, maybe I should get rid of 1,000 bottles of baby oil? Like, not one, not two. One wouldn't have gone noticed. 2 wouldn't have gone noticed. 100, maybe. Then it starts, what the fuck? 1,000, dog. And I know they ain't say this here, but it's been said in a bunch of other places. 1,000 bottles, dog. Like, that's crazy.
When the hotel rooms got damaged, they helped clean it up. They arranged for victims and commercial sex workers to travel for the freak-offs, and they delivered large quantities of cash to Combs to pay for the commercial sex workers.
According to the indictment, in or about March of 2024, during searches of Combs' residences in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California law enforcement seized various freak-off supplies, including narcotics and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. Wow, you talk about physical evidence here to prove these claims. Now, federal prosecutors allege that Combs used the threat of violence as well as actual assaults to keep his alleged victims in line. The indictment reads, quote, Combs maintained control over his victims through, among other things, physical violence, promises of career opportunities, granting and threatening to withhold financial support, and by other coercive means, including tracking their whereabouts, dictating the victim's appearance, monitoring their medical records, controlling their housing, and supplying them with controlled substances. During and separate from freak-offs, Combs, among other things, hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims at times by the hair. These assaults often resulted in injuries that took days or weeks to heal. Combs also threatened victims' careers and livelihoods, including if they resisted participating in freak-offs. So a majority of that indictment covers that first count, racketeering conspiracy. Now I want to talk quickly about the other 2 counts that he faces. So count 2 is a charge of sex trafficking of a victim by using force or coercion or fraud to have that person engage in commercial sex acts that are either for money or something of value is promised or given. And there were allegations that Combs had made promises of opportunities and so forth to get what he wanted. And he's also charged with count 3, which is related to the transportation of people for purposes of prostitution. Now, quick side note about this. This is a comprehensive indictment, but it doesn't have a lot of details about what evidence prosecutors have to prove all of this. It also doesn't include every allegation that has been asserted against Combs in numerous civil complaints. For instance, there is nothing regarding minors. You know, there's been a lot of allegations that there were minors at these Combs parties, which we had heard before in these other allegations and these other complaints. Nothing about minors here. Now, Damian Williams, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, said that it's possible more charges could be on the way. He wouldn't confirm it one way or another, said nothing's off the table, so we don't know. But maybe there wasn't enough evidence to prove that there were minors at these parties or Combs did anything criminal related to minors. But I tell you what, we did get a lot more information from another filing from the prosecution. I'll get to that in a second. First, I have to get to the defense, because in a letter filed with the court on Tuesday, Combs' defense team laid out a proposed bail package for their client, why he should be released pending trial. And they explained why his actions over the last 6 months point toward cooperation, not avoidance. They also call out the government for seemingly making things more difficult than they had to be. His team writes, quote, "Through counsel, Mr. Combs promptly told the government that he had voluntarily come to New York, offered to tell them specifically where he was, and offered to turn himself in at the appropriate time. Even though Mr. Combs came to New York, authorized his lawyers to tell the government of his location, and offered to self-surrender, the government effected an arrest last evening. This, we know, is the government's right. However, that he traveled to New York to self-surrender is also something the court should consider." So what is this bail package that the defense outlines? Well, here are some of the main points. One, a $50 million bond co-signed by Combs, his mother, his sister.
He can really just get whatever amount of bond he needs. A $50 million bond. Bro, one day, I wish. One day. That's crazy. I don't know. If he did all this, honestly, I don't even know if he should get it. Just because he has extra money.
The mother of his eldest daughter and his 3 adult sons, that $50 million would be secured by the equity in Combs' Miami home. The appraised value of that home on Star Island is $48 million. So in other words, this is what he's saying. You can secure this. You can know that I'm not going to flee the country. I'm not going to break the bail conditions. I'm putting this home up. The defense says that Combs paid off the remaining mortgage, $18 million, so he could use it to secure a bond. The equity in his mother's home in Miami could also be used as collateral. And the letter goes on to say that Combs' travel would be restricted to the Southern District of Florida and the Southern District of New York. Combs apparently surrendered his passport to his attorneys right after the raids on his home, and several of his family members, including his children, have surrendered their passports too. Combs' counsel says he is currently working on selling his private plane, so he wouldn't be able to just jet off to some exotic locale that has no extradition with the United States.
He still has money where he can
In the bail
jet
package
off.
information, it's also revealed that Combs wants to be under house arrest and would agree to GPS monitoring. The letter from Combs' attorneys also fires back at the assistant U.S. attorneys working on the case, saying they reached out to him in the days before the raids but never got any reply. And then on March 25th, agents swooped in with a big show of force, which the attorneys insist was unnecessary. The filing also goes into Combs' philanthropic works, including his work with the Boys and Girls Club of America, his donations to open a charter school in New York, and his work fundraising to get PPE for frontline workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. At the end of the document,
that's all
the defense team
good.
states Sean
That's
Combs
all good things, right? But none of that should really change too much if you're guilty of sex crimes. I mean, realistically, and $50 million, you're only getting that because you can get because you're rich, bro. Nobody else is paying a $50 million bail, or at least not most people.
Never evaded, avoided, eluded, or run from a challenge in his life. He will not start now. As he has handled every hardship, he will meet this case head on. He will work hard to defend himself, and he will prevail. Now, the prosecution had a different view. So the prosecution team also sent a letter to the judge defending their assertion that Combs should be locked up with no bail. Their letter states, quote, "As reflected by the gravity of the charges in the indictment, the defendant is dangerous and poses an ongoing threat to the safety of the community. If released, he remains a serious risk of flight despite the conditions offered by his counsel. Most glaringly, the defendant also poses a significant risk of obstructing justice. The letter also goes into more detail about some of those specific situations that Combs was allegedly involved in that point to the lengths he would reportedly go to get what he wanted. For example, quote, the defendant ensured the victims would participate in freak-offs through coercion and violence. For instance, the defendant provided controlled substances, including ketamine, ecstasy, GHB, to female victims.
So just so everybody knows, GHB is the date rape drug. And you get real messed up taking. And the reason it's the date rape drug and so many people use it for that is because it's just a clear liquid. You only need about like a water cap, like a water bottle cap full into somebody's drink. And they're just going to feel like they got really drunk. But they're going to be messed up like on the floor, like not able to, for most people, know what's going on. Not really remember anything the next day. And it's like, from what I understand, it's super hard to detect and it gets out of your system fast. So it's like, if you're giving that out, it's not for a good reason. Like, this is not like your average recreational drug. Okay, ecstasy, recreational, ketamine, pretty recreational. But GHB is not a regular recreational drug. You got some motives you giving that out.
Would continue to engage in freak-offs despite fatigue, physical and emotional exhaustion, and pain. Additionally, both during freak-offs and separate from freak-offs, the defendant subjected female victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse, in part to cause them to engage in freak-offs. The defendant hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged female victims, sometimes by their hair. At least a dozen witnesses will confirm that they personally observed the defendant's violence towards women and or the injuries sustained by women at the defendant's hand. Now, back to that 2016 video that I mentioned of Combs allegedly attacking Cassandra Ventura out in L.A., they say in this letter, prosecution, they claim that Combs used money and influence to try to keep that video from getting out. Quote, when a member of hotel security staff intervened, the defendant attempted to offer their hotel security officer a stack of cash to ensure his silence. After the security guard refused...
All I'm going to say, I'm taking the stack of cash. I'm still going to go rat on you. You're doing that on a woman and I work at the place, bro. I'm robbing you. And I'm doing, what are you going to go? You going to go tell the cops when I go tell them, they're like, oh, I gave him some money to not talk. I'm going to say, no, he didn't. He told me that was my tip. Or I'm just going to say, he didn't give me no money. Like, bro, what are we talking about right now? I'm robbing you. And I'm telling on you in that situation. Bro, you're like beating a woman. Like, bro, like, that's not, anyone who hasn't seen the video, it's not like it's a little smack, bro. The man runs through a hotel in a towel, just a towel, no, like, naked underneath, bro, and goes and, like, clocks this girl a bunch of times, bro. Like, it's bad. It's bad, that video, bro.
The defendant's bribe, and after coordination between the defendant...
But shout out to that guy for not taking the bribe.
...and his employees, the defendant's staff contacted other members of hotel security. Within days of the incident, the surveillance video disappeared from the hotel's server. Now, this is the exact allegations put forward by Cassandra Ventura, which makes you wonder, is she one of the cooperating witnesses with the government? You have to believe so. And clearly, there is something to be said that the prosecutors here are believing the account of Ventura and possibly these other alleged victims. It's not just them filing a lawsuit against Sean Combs. They are believing these allegations to substantiate criminal charges. That's big. Now, the letter also references another alleged incident that was first revealed in Ventura's lawsuit last fall, when she alleged that Combs set fire to fellow recording artist Kid Cudi's car when he seemed to show interest in Ventura. According to the filing, quote, in the early morning hours of December 22nd, 2011, the defendant and a co-conspirator kidnapped an individual at gunpoint to facilitate breaking into and entering the residence of individual 1. Multiple witnesses would testify at trial to the events surrounding the kidnapping and break-in, the latter of which is corroborated by police reports and other records. Approximately 2 weeks later, the defendant's co-conspirator set fire to individual 1's vehicle
I was
by
going to say, I don't think it was Diddy who
car's
did it
convertible
himself,
top
but that's
and dropping
hilarious.
a Molotov cocktail inside the interior. Police and fire department reports extensively document the arson and conclude that the fire was intentionally set. Multiple witnesses would also testify to the defendant bragging about his role in destroying individual one's car. So again, prosecutors really taking Cassandra Ventura's allegations as true. And again, while he's not specifically charged with arson, that is a part of the racketeering charge. Goes on, the prosecution, they raised concerns about Combs' access to weapons as well, especially firearms. The letter includes photographs of weapons found in Combs' homes. Again, this is all the reason why they believe he should be denied bail. In March of 2024, during searches of the defendant's residences in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 AR-15s, each with defaced serial numbers, as well as a large capacity drum magazine. As pictured in a close-up image, the serial number of one of the AR-15s is visibly bored through and obscured. By the way, that in and of itself is a federal crime.
I was going to say.
We did an episode about the recent potential shooting of former President Donald Trump. That individual is charged with that crime. The filing goes on to state, quote, 2 of the 3 defaced AR-15s were found in the defendant's Miami bedroom closet, stored broken down in parts, along with magazines that were loaded with ammunition. In addition, 6 legally purchased guns with serial numbers, some of which were stored in gun safes, were recovered from the defendant's residences. Now, from there, in this bail letter, Combs is also accused of trying to influence witnesses. Prosecutors state, quote, specifically following the November 2023...
I just want to say none of this shit that he's doing, like influencing witnesses, is surprising. When you're this rich, bro, you're gonna try and use your money to get out of some stuff. That's just normal. I mean, I think everyone's just gonna say it's safe to assume that he's doing that.
Lawsuit. The defendant and intermediaries acting on his behalf reached out to potential victims and witnesses to the alleged conduct, including individuals he did not speak to regularly and had not spoken to in years, to attempt to feed those victims and witnesses false narratives about the defendant's criminal conduct. For example, on or about November 19, 2023, just 3 days after the filing of the lawsuit described above, this is the Cassandra Ventura one, the defendant made multiple calls to another victim of his sexual abuse and recorded certain of those calls under the cell phone, using the cell phone of a co-conspirator. During the calls, the defendant repeatedly asked for the victim's support and friendship and attempted to convince the victim that she had willingly engaged in acts constituting sexual abuse. The defendant also assured the victim that if she needed the defendant to, she ain't got to worry about nothing else. Quote, even more concerning, since learning about the criminal investigation, including following the execution of the search warrants at his residences, Combs contacted other witnesses on multiple occasions, including other witnesses who had received grand jury subpoenas, basically accusing him of obstruction. And by the way, the prosecution also points out that many of the crimes that Combs is accused of happened in his home. So putting him on house arrest, they would say, doesn't do much to mitigate. But
I just have to say, that's a banger of a point, bro. Most of the stuff he did was in his home. How are you going to let him out on house arrest? Yeah, bro, he might not get out on no bail. That's a good point, bro. Shout out to the prosecution person who put it like that, bro. It's simple but effective, bro. You hear that? You're like, yo, he did do most of this in his house.
Wrongdoing inside his residence. Now they talk about the weight of the evidence as a factor to consider in whether to deny bail. Quote, as to witnesses, to date, the government has conducted interviews with over 50 victims and witnesses, many of whom saw or experienced the defendant's abuse. Many of these witnesses corroborate one another, and their accounts are consistent with the other types of evidence discussed below. The government only expects that number to continue to grow, given that the investigation, which is now public, is ongoing. And also, the prosecution revealed in its filing that the government has seized more than 90 cell phones, laptops, cloud storage accounts, hard drives, thumb drives, cameras, a surveillance system that they say...
I'm just going to say he's probably fucked and never getting out. This might be like that, not Epstein, who is that movie guy? Oh, I can't remember his name. Y'all know who I'm talking about. The director dude who's in jail for like 30 years now. He probably gonna get this too, Diddy, because like it's seeming like he got a lot of evidence against him. You got 50 victims testifying and possibly more. Bro, just off that alone, that's good evidence. It's hard to get 50 people to agree on anything.
Shows this criminal activity. So based on that, we can assume that the evidence the Southern District of New York has against Combs is likely vast. Quote, the evidence also consists of physical evidence, which was seized pursuant to search warrants executed at the defendant's residences in Los Angeles and Miami, as well as on his person and the persons of certain co-conspirators. In addition to the firearms and electronics discussed above, the physical evidence also includes other evidence of freak-offs, including over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and personal lubricant. Disgusting.
Lubricant baby oil. Bro! And he's probably got the big bottles too, bro. Bro, you didn't think to get rid of that? Or everything to get rid of, that would be one of the things.
The prosecution ends their letter to the judge by saying, quote, there are no conditions of bail that would assure the appearance and compliance of the defendant or the safety of others. Accordingly, any application for bail should be denied.
A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York of New York. The investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly. Anyone with information can call 1-877.
Did he did anything to you? There's the number. You call that up. Here, look, I'll move myself for a second. Hold on. Move myself. There you go. There's the tip line. 1-877-4-HSI-TIP. 1-877-4-HSI-TIP. It's probably toll free. Not sure. I think 877s are... No, it's 1-800 is toll. Whatever. Tip line. Diddy did something. Get in on it. Let's go.
HSI tip. I want to express my deep appreciation for the victims and witnesses who have used their voices and helped bring this criminal conduct to light. We would not be here without them.
So what happened? Well, there was a hearing in front of the Honorable Robin F. Tarnofsky, a magistrate judge from the Southern District of New York, and arguments for and against bail were put forward by the prosecution and the defense. And remember, there is actually a presumption of detainment in this case. And the judge reportedly said that after listening to all the evidence, that the presumption has not been rebutted, meaning that Sean Combs is denied bail. He must remain behind bars. She reportedly said there was a significant amount of violence and weapons. There was the allegation of coercion of witnesses. And even though she seemed to thank his family for coming, she cannot release him at this time. Now, we will, of course, keep you updated on any and all developments in this case of Sean.
So that's crazy. Shout out to Law and Crime. So it does not look like Diddy's going to get bail. It seems from what he said he might not get it at all. One other thing I want to add is this is federal court. So not only is there a very good chance of guilt, you're not going to see any of the court videos like you get with the Melly trial or Wade Wilson or any of the other stuff, because that's all state courts. Federal does not allow cameras into the courtroom. So you're only going to hear reports. You're going to get documents, stuff like that, but you're not going to get any actual video inside the courtroom at all. Like, they're really strict about that. They don't let the press in at all. So don't expect any of that. Anyways, Diddy's probably fucked, in my opinion. It looks like he's guilty. It looks like he's going to do a long time. Will he ever get out again? Who knows? He has a lot of money. He has good lawyers. They're definitely going to fight it. 1,000 bottles of lube is absolutely crazy. I hope he gets what he deserves, and I hope y'all enjoyed this reaction video. It's been another one. We've been going through some craziness with Diddy. I'm going to be doing another Wade Wilson video tomorrow, so I hope y'all enjoy, and I got more stuff releasing over on the Raw Talk Show with me and Pino. Go check his channel out, PNO. We just hit 400K subs over there, so shout out to everyone who subbed over there. Shout out to everyone who's subbing over here, all the new people I got. Shout out to y'all. Everyone who's still watching this video, shout out to you. Like, comment, subscribe, and have a blessed day. Peace.